Hello, it's Michelle Clenard, body intuitive coach and wholeness systems practitioner, and I teach self-care, healing, and personal growth through the lens of a wholeness approach. And in this video, we're talking about why it is so uncomfortable to process emotions. And I think I've got about 8 reasons for this video. And the first one is your subconscious programming and conditioning. And that comes through exposure and experience with family, culture, and systemic things like school and just the way the world works, how society and media portrays emotions. We are taught to hold them in order to make sure that other people are comfortable, even if it's at our expense, and it should not be at our expense. That is not a healthy approach to emotions, and there is no human being that does not have some emotions. And if you're thinking, well, it's polite to make other people comfortable, there's some truth to that. However, if it's at the expense of your health and well-being, that's taking it too far. And since a certain amount of emotion is expected, because you're a human being, you shouldn't have to suppress your emotions to the point of your own detriment or for fear of, being isolated. Not everyone is ready for your emotions, sure, but neither were you. So it's okay to prioritize your needs. And it's okay to step away from others if you need to and you're able to. But the important thing is to shift the mindset from old programming and conditioning that says that at all cost, don't make others uncomfortable by having feelings, and recognize that there is a way to have and acknowledge feelings without it being so messy. The second reason that processing emotions is so uncomfortable is a fear that if you feel the emotion, you will never stop feeling it. Another way to present this would be to say that you get hijacked by your emotions. They just kind of take over and interfere with living your life. Or you feel like you're at the mercy of them. And this is most likely if you have big, intense emotions. And speaking from personal experience with anxiety, panic disorder, and depression, these type of intense emotions that cycle in a pattern can, in fact, be really scary. So that's a valid concern. But learning to address them in a practice, in a self-care, a self-healing self-care practice can help unpattern some of those more deeply rooted patterns of emotion that you experience. And it can help you process and recover from them faster, whether they're deeply rooted or they're just something that rises up, momentarily. The third reason that processing emotions is so uncomfortable is that sometimes we have a concern about being able to function at our jobs, at school, or in our life. We are required to perform at a level that doesn't interfere with the systems in place, productivity, capitalism, etc. And having emotions is not convenient in terms of not interfering. So it's kind of a concern that, if we have feelings when we are at work or at school, that we might mess things up, either for others or for ourselves. There may be consequences, and we try to avoid those consequences. If you have a way to deal with emotions in the moment that you can implement at school and at work, will actually make it easier for you to not have your emotions interfere with your livelihood or with your school career. So the fourth reason why it's so uncomfortable to process emotions is what I like to call familiar discomfort. Our feelings or our emotions, especially ones that we experience on repeat, they might be uncomfortable, but we're so familiar with them that that discomfort feels safe or familiar to us. And therefore we kind of return to it unconsciously. It's not really something we choose to be in, but it's something that we become conditioned or patterned to, is familiar discomfort. It's kind of a coping strategy, albeit not always an effective one, one that can sometimes create more discomfort, or hold us in a pattern that feels limiting or stuck, or that we just don't like the outcome of. The fifth reason is a fear of judgment. Fear of judgment that we might be vulnerable or weak because we are having emotions. And the truth is, a willingness to acknowledge and to process emotions or express emotions is actually a show of deep strength of character. Because strength really isn't about muscles all the time. It's really about your willingness to show up in spite of fear or uncertainty. There is so much strength in vulnerability, and through that strength, there can also be healing. The sixth reason why processing emotions is so uncomfortable is having to face the unpleasantness of certain parts of our reality. I mean, our emotions rise up in response to our experiences, our perception. And if we acknowledge an emotion, sometimes that means acknowledging something that's not working well for us, whether it's in our relationships or our job, or it's an internal environmental factor, like something about us, the way that we're approaching things maybe isn't working. And that can be a very difficult thing to do sometimes, is to face the unpleasantness of our reality. The seventh reason that processing emotions is so uncomfortable is that feelings and emotions tend to be a bit scary because they feel so real. Emotions and feelings do not create our reality, and they are almost always temporary states of being as the emotional energy moves through you. And when we get patterned to have cycles of intense emotion, they're more deeply rooted patterns, and they tend to compound this, this fear or belief that feelings are reality, that they are so real they are our reality. Because they last, especially the intense patterns, they last longer, which, even though eventually that state ends, the state of emotion comes to an end when they're intense, it still can compound a belief that our feelings are very real, that they are, in fact, our truth or our reality. So just know that your feelings and emotions are not your reality. They are a temporary state of being, and they will pass. And when you have a tool that you can use to help you move through it, you can reverse that conditioning so that it feels more like they're temporary instead of feeling so indefinite. And the eighth and final reason for this video's purposes, at least, that processing emotions is so uncomfortable is that a lot of times when our emotions rise up, they are triggered or activated along with a trauma or stress pattern that's held in our body, our nervous system, or somewhere. It triggers our defense or our protector systems, the ones that are wired into your physiology to help you cope and survive perceived threats. And sometimes our experiences, something someone says or something that we encounter throughout the day feels threatening, and then that can trigger emotions, an emotional response. And sometimes our emotions, like our past emotions, ones that have already been suppressed and held in our body, sometimes those get triggered, and our protection system, our nervous system, perceives our internal emotions as a threat. And when that happens, it can actually perpetuate more avoidance of emotion because it's kind of scary and it feels threatening. And it's not something we consciously choose, it's something that happens under the radar in our subconscious systems that are intended to keep us safe and help us cope and survive. And when we address our emotions intentionally with self-healing self-care called WholeCare, you can actually help calm the nervous system and neutralize those emotions and the associated trauma and stress patterns. So if you'd like to learn more about a more comfortable way to process emotions, please do so by following the links provided in the description of this video. You can sign up for the Thrive newsletter. Some new dates to learn WholeCare for emotions are coming in 2022, so check for information on that at michelleclenard.com. There's a link to the website. And of course, if you like this video, please share. And don't forget, if you are interested in the previous video, which is why it's so important to process emotions, you can find that on my YouTube channel or on social media, Facebook or Instagram. And if you'd like to learn more about processing emotions, you can stay tuned for the next video, which is how to process emotions more comfortably. And you can learn a little bit more about how that works in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.